world could not say, we didn't know. I didn't think I would be so emotional. Here she is here. She was almost 7. She was almost 8. I'm surprised that I'm so emotional. I didn't expect it. One of the hardest things I ever shot. You know? And normally, I always found that shooting the living was more difficult than photographing the dead. You know, the dead were dead; they didn't share emotion, and I've normally found that photographing mothers and children that were alive and suffering was more difficult emotionally for me than the dead. But this was something unexpected. I was shocked mostly by the brutality of it. You know, it was clear to me when I was shown the sisters, and I think possibly with their mother, they had run into the tight scrub and bush to hide. And it was clear to me that these guys had just walked through looking for them, hunting them, and just shooting them where they found them. And there were other members of the family also dead around. And you could see that they were clawing their way to escape through the trees. It was the brutality of it, the hatred that shocked me the most. There was this young baby also was killed, and they had just discovered 𝐫𝐭𝐤𝐥𝐢𝐯𝐞 and 𝐫𝐭𝐤𝐤 when I had arrived. And after seeing that, you know, my skills as a photographer became zero. I was in such shock that I wasn't really capable of doing my job properly. I sort of sat there in silence with another local man for some time. And I forced myself to get up and to take some pictures. You know, my pictures were my life. I mean, that's what I did. They're a part of me. They're a history of what I saw and what I experienced, but also of the time and the people I met and the places I went. You know, I think photography is an extremely important document. It's our collective history and our collective memory. First we went to another part of the village, which was up on top of a ridge, and there I discovered an old woman was sitting. I have a picture of her sitting over her dead husband, and he was an old man. He must have been in his 80s. He even had his walking cane next to him. He'd been executed. He'd been shot in the head. And then we were showing another gentleman, middle-aged, maybe a little bit older, maybe in his 60s, I think. He was in a tool shed or a shed for a tractor or something. He was also shot. And then they explained to us that the main part of the family was down in a little valley from the ridge, and we walked down through the fields. And I remember there were two houses, one house facing each other with a road in the middle. One house was burnt, completely burnt. And there was a body of the owner of the house was in there. The other house was, it was one of those big fenced off, big fence around it with a big gate in it on the front. They were collecting the bodies that they had found scattered around, not far away, some only 20 meters, maybe the furthest one only 50 meters hiding. And there was the shelter made out of sticks and plastic. That's where the baby was shot. There were men with makeshift stretchers. They'd find bodies in the bush and put them on the makeshift stretchers and bring them to this central point. At the first, I think they were all buried in this particular spot, because a few days later they found another body that had been dropped into the well. I have also a photograph of that. And they had dug a fresh grave for him. I have a picture of them about to load the body into the grave. It was raining and it was wet. The grave was full of water. The smell was horrific. One guy had a face mask on. And by that time, if that was a few days afterwards, the other graves were already around. They'd already buried everybody else that they had found. It was the first time I ever experienced this hopelessness, and I sat with one guy smoking cigarette and not believing what I'd seen.
So peaceful out here now.
The place changed in 20 years. This is where the baby was killed. I'm guessing so. It's after 20 years, everything has grown and changed completely. And going by the pictures, it's very difficult to know exactly the spot. But if he says this is the spot, he knows. It has. I imagine this was where the road was. This road here was here, yeah. And probably this was just here, sitting. And these guys were somewhere in here. But it wasn't so overgrown, It's a sense of peace, but there's also a sense of crime mixed in together. So the first pictures were where the oldest man was killed, and there was another man there, and then we walked from that higher point, we walked down into this valley. I think then, I have some other pictures, they're not in this book, of them carrying the bodies to this makeshift, this first grave site, or collecting them.
Kjo masakër ka ndodhur para 10 ditësh tek mbram, kemi arrit t'i gjejmë kufomat e këtyre 2 vajzave të cilat kanë qenë të humbura, me shpresë se do t'i gjejmë gjallë i gjetën të masakruara.
Janë dalë prej neve, edhe sipas mjekësisë ligjore i kanë vërtetuar se janë të dhunone edhe të masakruara. 2 motra 16 vjeçare dhe 14 vjeçare. Mi hanë edhe në të konë të gjithë. I kanë rejnë një herë, miqën edhe babën, tani kanë blënë prani nanës tamë, tamës edhe të motrës 2 vjeçare.
The soldiers that perpetrated this, they really went hunting. To come into this looking and hunting, and it was nighttime. They really came hunting to kill. This is not like behind the house. They're hidden quite deep. And they really came hunting for them. The world could not say, we didn't know. The world could not say the information wasn't available. We made sure that it was. And what the world chose to do with it was out of our control. So that for me was enough. So when I met 𝐫𝐸𝐷𝐒, he wouldn't let me take any photographs of him. But then, you know, we convinced him that I needed something. I needed a picture of something. So he let me take a photograph of his bodyguards. They put their masks on so they didn't. So this is at the beginning of February '98. And then the next time I saw him was in the shed with his family after he was killed. And that was the 9th of March '98. I met him alive. And then when we were interviewing him, he said he wasn't 𝐫𝐸𝐷𝐒, he said he was Adam's brother. I guess for security reasons as well, I don't know. But then, you know, later when I saw him, a month later, his body in the shed, I realized that it was 𝐫𝐸𝐷𝐒 that we met.